That was so beautiful, Kate. Thank you so much. I think that was the sermon, but I just thought I'd add a few words. So, happy Easter, everyone, and Christ the Lord is risen.
He's risen indeed.
So why have we come here this morning to this rather strange spot? We're sort of in a barbed wire, cemetery, the last remnant of what was the Brainerd Mission. And we know those were sort of the original Congregationalists that came to Chattanooga to work with the Cherokee. But you know, we're in the middle of a shopping mall. It's pretty cold outside. It's a little early for some of us. And so I ask again, you know, why did we come here this morning? And I think some of the answer is in the song that Kate sang for us. Surely we've come here to celebrate that the tomb was empty, that death is no more, that Jesus has conquered death, that he was resurrected. But we've also come here to meet the living Jesus. We all want to have that experience of walking and talking with Jesus, to be in the garden, to be known intimately, the way that song talks about. The guy who wrote the song had a vision. It was in 1912, as Kate said, and he was an amateur photographer, and he was in his developing room, and he just read that gospel. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, he felt like he was in that garden with Mary Magdalene and Jesus and really seeing what was happening. Felt like he was there on the first Easter. And he felt inspired to write that song. But you know what? So that intimacy, that sort of gathering in, that closeness with Jesus, I think is something that we'd all wish to experience in coming here this morning. And as I was reading this gospel, it's very familiar. I know we read it every Easter, but what really struck me about the gospel story this morning is that Mary stays weeping by the tomb. Now, John, the other disciple whom Jesus loved, that we assume is John, and Peter, they run over there, you know, they check things out, they look inside. Okay, the body is gone, just like Mary said. But then they go home and they believe the body's been taken by somebody. But Mary stays, and Mary keeps searching for Jesus. She keeps trying to find him. She stays weeping. She asked the disciples, she asked the angel, she asked the gardener, "Where is my Lord?" And it's in that moment of being vulnerable, of weeping, of being in her sorrow, that Jesus meets her. She sees and recognizes Jesus when he says, "Mary." And he recognizes her. And in that moment, they experience knowing one another. And it's in her sorrow that she sees the risen Lord just as he'd promised. Now, when I read over this story and thought about Mary weeping, I thought about a time in my life when I was weeping. It was when I had been working as a chaplain at Erlanger just for the first year I was a resident. Bryce knows what that's like. And I was just overwhelmed with all the grief, all the death that I'd been seeing in the last few months of my residency. I was on a trip and with Macon, but I asked to be excused from whatever social activity was going on that I just said, I can't take it right now. I went to the hotel pool by myself, and thankfully I was completely alone there. And I just started bawling. I mean, it was pretty bad. I could not stop the flow of tears. It was maybe something about the pool water. And as I was crying, I thought to myself, I spent all this time listening to other people and being present to them in their grief. But I need a chaplain. I need someone to be there for me. And I just kept crying. As I was crying, I saw this couple walking across the pool deck on the other side. And they were dressed up for the evening. They were carrying a bottle of red wine. They were walking, who knows where, to maybe drink some wine before they went to a party by poolside. But they noticed me and they paused and they asked me, are you okay? And I could barely choke out the words, yes, because I didn't want them to be bothered with me. And I wasn't having something really dramatic going on. I just wanted, really to be left alone, I suppose. And they even offered me, they're like, would you like some of our wine? And I was like, no, I'm fine. Just crying. So they kept walking. But then the woman turned and she looked at me and she saw me and she came right over to me and she opened up her arms and she took my chlorine wet head, bathing suit body into hers. She held me to her chest before I could have a chance to say, you're going to ruin your dress. She just held me. She was present to me. She was a complete stranger, but she became the risen Lord to me right in that moment, in that twilight in Nashville. And I felt like I'd seen the Lord. So I think we do meet the risen Lord. We meet him in our neighbors. We meet him in our care for one another. We'll meet him in communion this morning. We meet him in hospital rooms, in gardens, when we teach each other the meaning of love. We come to this garden this morning searching for Jesus, knowing the tomb could not hold him, that love is stronger than death, that he is risen, that he is here. So in this year of weeping, in this year of loss, in this year that's been like no other year in recent memory, let's remember this Easter that the risen Lord also meets us in our sorrow. He meets us in our joy and in our tears. He is my God and he is your God. He is my Father and he is your Father. He comes to us when we need him most. And sometimes he comes to us through a stranger. But he always comes to those who remain weeping. And surely he will meet us each this morning in this garden. So as we celebrate his rising to the tomb, and as we leave here this day, I hope we can say along with Mary, I have seen the risen Lord. Amen.